I want to first just give a big thank you to the company Chisel. Chisel, which you're going to learn more about today, but Chisel's a product management platform that really it bridges product and sales with the whole purpose of amplifying revenue, which that's what we're all after with our companies, right? We got to get that revenue coming in. But yet Chisel helps product teams collect 360-degree feedback to help build feedback connected roadmaps and hyper-focused prioritization, which again, us as product people, we're being pulled in all sorts of different ways. So Chisel can help us stay focused. And a big thank you goes out to Chisel, who's supporting not just this webinar, but they're starting to get involved in lots of things that we'll be doing with the entire product collective community. So chances are you'll be hearing a lot more about Chisel throughout the year as well. And actually, I'm really excited to dig right into today's session, talk about today's topic, introduce our guest, who is the CEO of Chisel, and that's Praful Chavda. Praful, it's awesome to have you here with us.
Thanks, Mike. It's amazing to be here with you and the community.
Yeah, well, you know, I think the title of the session, it's a great one, right? It's, are you a product manager or a pointless manager? And this might tug at some of us, and I want to dig into the topic and what we mean by that when we're asking that question. But first, Praful, I think it'd be helpful just to learn a little bit more about you and your background. And, you know, I know you've spent time in all sorts of different places throughout, you know, the product world. So maybe we could start there.
Of course. So Mike, you know, I've been a product management leader myself for over 20 years now. I've spent time across both very large companies like Microsoft, as well as several small startups. At Microsoft, my last role was head of product in Office 365 team. Before that, I built the Windows, the App Store in the Windows team. And then very early in my career, I also worked on the high definition playback engine for Xbox. After Microsoft, I switched gears and I joined a machine learning startup in the Bay Area, which was in the HR space. And having got my feet wet there, I then quit and started my first company, which was doing natural language processing and AI. After 2 years, I sold the company, and then I started Chisel. And I've been at this for like 3.5 years almost now. Our product has been out in the market for over 3 years. And I'm based here in sunny California, Bay Area.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, and by the way, fair to say, with all of the different products you just mentioned, the products you've worked on has touched, what is it? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions of users. I mean, it's gotta be massive.
When you talk about products like Office 365, you're talking about billions.
Yeah, that's wild. That's wild. Well, I want to get into the meat of the session here and, you know, get right to the topic, which was a question. The question was, are you a product manager or a pointless manager? And again, maybe that might tug certain people in different directions. First of all, what do we mean by that, when we're asking that question? And I'm sure nobody wants to be a pointless manager. So how do we not be that pointless manager? Maybe you could start to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, you know, that title is kind of provocative. But, you know, the question, interestingly, is not actually a new question, right? In my career over the last 20 years, in several teams, I've seen some stakeholders ask this question one way versus another. And I think, interestingly, you know, this whole argument gets a little bit confused between the importance of the function versus the title or the role, right? But regardless, I think the question is pertinent. And of late, this debate kind of got fueled again when Brian Chesky made the comment from Airbnb, right, that they are kind of like changing the way product management works. And it created this new wave of conversation in the community once again. I think in my mind, the reason why I've seen this question come up in the past is that some stakeholders start to feel like product managers are only acting as a glue or a conduit, right? Coordinating activities between different stakeholders, as against doing their own work, which adds a lot of value to the business, right? And the problem, and the problem is, if we as PMs don't ask ourselves that, are we being seen as a value-adding member of the team or the organization or not? If we don't ask that question again and again, I think the stakeholders may perceive that we are really not adding value. And I think it results in a lot of, it's a negative vicious cycle, right? What essentially happens is if stakeholders think that you are not adding value, they will stop involving in you in some of the conversations. If that happens, you lose your ability to influence decisions in the organization, and that further weakens the perception of product management as a function which is adding value to the organization. At the end of the day, as product managers, I remember, one of the executives had once said this, which stuck with me, right? That as a product manager, do you see a line outside your door of stakeholders waiting to talk to you? Right? And even if you don't take that literally, the point really is that do stakeholders find that they get a lot of value out of you and they want to engage with you to get advice, to get opinion, or to get a decision from you, which is critical to the business? And that's where, as a PM, you really want to be. And where I have found in the past that stakeholders have really, really appreciated the value that comes from the product managers is in their role as connecting the customer needs, connecting the market needs, which is external focused one, to the decision of what product should we build, what technology should we use. It's essentially deciding whether a product or technology that they are engaged in, is that really making the business better? Is there a business viability behind that? And if product managers keep doing a great job of providing that clarity to the rest of the organization, the stakeholders would never have to ask the questions that, hey, are you just a pointless manager?
Yeah. No, I love that. It's thinking, sounds like it's thinking not so much about, let's get these products launched. How do we get them launched on time? It's more about, yeah, let's do that. But also, should these even be the products we're launching? Are these solving customer problems? Why are we doing this in the first place? It seems like the product managers that are adding the most value are asking those questions first and foremost.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know when we promoted this session in the description, we referenced pillars of product management. And I thought maybe we could dig into that a little bit more too, because I know, and this is for everybody else's benefit too. The team at Chisel has written so much great content. And I'm going to reference that certainly when I send the follow-up to everybody and share this video. But I've read a little bit about the pillars of product management that Chisel's written about in the past and its resources. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, the discipline of product management has evolved as the technology has evolved at a very fast pace, right? And but fundamentally the job of a PM hasn't really changed from the perspective of the core thing of connecting the customer and the market needs to the product and technology investments that we make. However, given that technology has really, moved rapidly, there are a few subtle changes that have happened, which are really important to keep in mind as we think about pillars of modern product management, right? So for me, there are 5 things that kind of bubble up to my mind when I think about how has it changed? What are the 5 things that I need to keep in mind in this modern environment, right? One of them is operationalizing feedback. See, everyone understands the importance of customer feedback, right? But have you actually operationalized that in your day-to-day decision-making? Second, hyper-focused prioritization. Again, product managers have always understood the importance of this, but this is becoming even more critical as things are changing really fast around us. 3, taking advantage of innovation happening in the space of new technologies, including AI, right? How can you take advantage of these newer innovations and increase automation such that your job, your productivity, as well as productivity of everyone around you is multiplied? 4, I often think about a system of record for the product management data. See, companies spend millions of dollars in building digital products with the aim to, get more customers, get more revenue, change the world. But behind these millions of dollars of investments that the companies are making, like all the decisions that have been made, all the data that has been used to make that decision, is there a posterity around that or not, right? And finally, in this ever-changing world of technology, a lot of stakeholders bring a lot of very, very valuable feedback to the table, right? Your UX champion may bring amazing insights of design into the play, right? Your sales manager could bring insane insights from the market in terms of what is selling, what is not selling. Your engineering manager would ascertain the feasibility of certain things happening or not happening, right? How do we align the force of all these disciplines behind a single goal? And how do we get the organization marching in the same direction so that we can pick up execution velocity to hit the goals that we are hitting? So that aligning the team is the final piece, I would say. Those are the 5 pieces where I think product managers need to be pay a lot of attention to that.
That's great. That's helpful. And I was jotting those down for everybody's benefit, so you all didn't have to take notes. I figured I'd list them all right there for you. Or if you wanted to jot those down, hopefully that's helpful. And then let's drill in on a couple of these, because I think these are all, like, it makes sense for sure. But then when we put it all into practice, we should probably get into more specific. So one of the things you mentioned was talking about operationalizing feedback. And I'm curious what you mean by that and how we might be able to think about what it actually means to operationalize feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. See, Mike, the concept of customer feedback is important, and it should be used in the decision-making process for prioritizing what we are building. That has been around for ages, right? And there are PMs who have done an amazing job at that function. And there are tools which have also helped collect this feedback in a great way. But I think the key thing here is, are you operationalizing that or not? And take an example, right? Let's say that if there is a ride-sharing company like Uber or Lyft, right? They collect feedback on passenger ratings, right? And they also collect feedback on driver ratings. Now you could imagine 2 worlds. In one world, you could say that, look, all this feedback and ratings we are collecting, every 3 months or 6 months, we will have some kind of reward program, and we will do something about that to reward good drivers or good passengers, right? But that's too little and too fragmented in terms of, like, it is happening once in 6 months. Who cares, right? However, the other side, the second example could be that instead of doing something every 6 months, based on the feedback, you are making day-to-day operational decisions, right? So next time when Mike calls for a ride, right, based on Mike's rating, the priority of how fast Mike gets a ride is decided. Mm-hmm. And similarly, if there was a pool of 10 drivers nearby who could get Mike's ride matched with, picking the driver who has the best ratings, right, is again an example of operationalize. So in this matchmaking process now, if you are using that data on the decision of every ride, you have truly 100% operationalized feedback at that point, right? Because it is weaved into your day-to-day, it is infused into your day-to-day decision-making. That's what I mean when I say that operationalizing feedback. So essentially, it's not just like, about, there are a lot of aspects to that, is right? It's like, how are you collecting feedback? Is it real time? Is it on every transaction? Or is it just once in a while you are doing an NPS survey? Having collected the feedback, how are you curating it, right? Do you have the right level of synthesis of the feedback, which helps you decide which feedback synthesis should factor into what kind of decisions? And then finally, when day-to-day decisions are being made, is this feedback readily available? Is it readily visible? Is it readily usable on those operational decisions? If you do all of these things, then obviously you have operationalized the feedback 100%, right? So that's what I mean. It is not just about understanding that feedback needs to be collected, and yes, we will collect it, and at some point we will use it. It is about operationalizing that in your day-to-day decision making.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And when you think of it that way, it's the feedback alone, sure, it might be helpful, but is it actionable? When you're operationalizing it, you're actually making it actionable. You're actually able to do something with it because it's all organized in a way where we can do something with it. So I like thinking about it that way. That's really helpful. Thank you for that. One of the other things you mentioned, I took notes down there, which was, another pillar is taking advantage of innovations that are happening with new technologies. AI comes to mind for that for sure. But there's an emphasis on automation and how, automation can actually play a pretty big role for ourselves as product managers. Could you drill into that a little bit more for us too?
Yeah, I think, interesting thing is that we as product managers, right, we are always assessing how new technologies, innovation or automation can be helpful in various parts of the business. And it is also natural that we also think about, how this automation is going to help us doing our own day-to-day job. And, you ask for an example, the best example, one of the best examples that come to my mind is, a lot of organizations collect a very large amount of feedback from their prospects, from their customers, etc. And it's a Herculean task to actually analyze the feedback, every single piece of ticket that comes in, right? Imagine if you're a bank and you have more than 5,000 feedback pieces collected over a period of a couple of weeks or something like that. Now, as a PM, it is a Herculean task to manually go through all these 5,000 feedback tickets and really understand where is the customer demand shifting to? What are the things that I need to pay attention to, right? So in the past, what has happened is many times this feedback just sat there, right? And maybe there was some crude way to pick up a few things from there and build on that. But if you think about now using AI, it is possible to automatically classify this feedback within seconds, right? So I could run a model on this feedback and taking the case of the hypothetical bank, right? I could say that, look, all these feedback tickets, 5,000 tickets, of which there are, 300 tickets on opening a new account, right? There are 500 tickets on bill payment, etc., etc. And I can auto-classify that. Once I auto-classify that, let's say if I am a PM who's responsible for the bill payment function, right? Then I automatically know that, I only have 200 tickets here, which are about the bill payment. And now you apply another level of automation on top of this to say that, hey, can you summarize this 400 tickets of bill payment into a PRD for me, right? And we can use AI for that. And again, within seconds, we can summarize those 400 ideas into concrete themes and turn that into a PRD. So what would have taken a PM days to do or weeks to do is now done in 1 minute. And of course, the output that comes out of that in terms of a PRD or something is not going to be 100% correct, right? All of us have seen examples of AI hallucinating, but it takes us to a place where we are 90% close to being done. Yeah. And then a PM can apply their own synthesis to clean that up. And now you have gone from 5,000 ideas to a concrete PRD within an hour.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a great example of increasing PM's own productivity using automation.
Yeah. And even if it's not, perfect the way it is right now, it doesn't need to be perfect for it to increase, our the production, everything that we're doing, our productivity. So I like thinking of it as, hey, it can help us now. It can help us even more as we move forward. So let's let it help us now to start with, at least. So I think that's helpful. I'm going to ask a couple more questions. Also want to get to audience questions before too long. So keep those audience questions coming in. There are some that are there. So I'll get to those in just a minute. One of the things, you mentioned before about prioritization. And I know for me and my past as a product person, product manager, product leader, it's a big challenge, right? There's so many things that we need to stay focused on. And throughout your career, right? Like you've spent time at the biggest of organizations, also the fastest of startups. So I'm curious your take on prioritization and maybe how it's changed over the course of your career, if your perspective has changed at all.
Well, I think when I look back at my career, there has not been a single project where after shipping something and after 6 to 8 months, when I look back, in every project I have felt that I could have done a much better job prioritizing. Now, one can say that hindsight is 2020. Looking back, obviously, feel like some decisions are crystal clear. But even if you remove those things, right, which are purely hindsight, even then I felt that in those projects there was I could have personally done a better job of hyper focused prioritization, right? And I think what happens is that, see, organizations hire good people. When you hire good people, they will come up with good ideas. Suddenly you have a bunch of good ideas, right? And good ideas are enemies of great ideas. Essentially, you end up chasing a lot of good ideas, which give you moderate to okay results, but not stunning results, right? And that's where the prioritization kicks in. Chase a few great ideas at the cost of several good ideas, right? And the other problem is if the PMs are not careful, when they introduce new features or new ideas, see, PMs are hub and spoke kind of a mechanism, right? One new piece of idea that they generate creates a work for everyone else. Now the UX design team guys have to think about that. Engineers have to think about that. It increases the atrophy. So if the PM can really entropy, if the PMs can do a great job of hyper prioritization, it helps the entire kind of team.
Yeah, that's helpful. I appreciate that. We have some good audience questions coming in, so I want to get to audience questions, and actually one of them is on tools that product managers should rely on, and it is reminding me, I'd love to learn more about Chisel and the work that you're doing at Chisel, because I think Chisel is one of these platforms that can help us as product managers. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on Chisel, and then we'll certainly take more audience questions after that too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, for me, really, I have lived through the pain of not having great product management tools throughout my career, right? And it was about 4 to 5 years ago where I really got to this point where I understood that, no matter whether it's a large organization where I used to be or very small startups, no matter it is a Silicon Valley based organization or, it's an organization in a legacy industry somewhere, some of the main pain points of product management have not been solved by the tools. If you think about some of the product management tools, legacy tools, they have focused on only one part of product management job, which is building roadmaps. But if you think about product management job in the broader context, right, the most important job for product managers is to connect the market needs, the customer needs, to the product and the engineering decisions that you need to make sure that your company gets great ROI in terms of the product decisions that you have made, right? And for that, it's super important for a product management tool to also cover that aspect of day-to-day job of a product manager, which is collecting customer feedback, collecting the market feedback, and tying that to the product roadmaps that you are building, right? And then, as I was saying earlier, once you have decided what to build, it is very important to align your stakeholders. And by that, I don't mean, a consensus building. By that, I mean alignment. Disagreements are good. They bring the best out of the ideas, right? But disagree and commit. How do you help the team do that? And then have a great connection with engineering tools like GitHub or Jira or Azure DevOps, right? Where your engineers don't get disrupted, their workflow doesn't get disrupted, but you get the benefit of having this great end-to-end view of what are you building and why are you building. So that's the mission we were on, to create that app for product managers where they can actually do their job right from the beginning in terms of discovery and customer needs to the execution phase. And the biggest thing we wanted to bring to table was feedback. That how do you make sure that feedback, we've built our own feedback tools, right? We just don't do integration. Of course, we do integration, but we have our own native modules which collect feedback. And how do you make sure this feedback is available at every stage of the decision making, right? So that's the PM. That's what Chisel is about. Chisel allows you to do all these things in a single tool.
Yeah.
And we've had our hypothesis has worked out pretty well. If you look at our G2 reviews, we are 4.9 star out of 5. We have hundreds of organizations using our product, including some very big names. And customers love the direction that we are taking.
That's awesome. Well, I know anytime you're building a product for product people, like the stakes are raised, the expectations are higher. So I'm sure, everybody here, I definitely encourage you to check out Chisel. And I know they'd love the feedback, right? We're all product people.
Absolutely.
So product people love feedback. So definitely check it out and provide that feedback. I'm going to share a link when I do follow up with everybody and provide the recording. I'll definitely provide information about Chisel. Praful, there are a lot of questions coming in. I'd love to take some audience questions too, if you're okay with that. Great. One of the questions was that we mentioned, a system of record for data earlier. The question was, can we elaborate on that? What do we mean when we say a system of record? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. Like, see, ironically, product management or PMs have been a big advocate of having or of capturing and storing data systematically for every other discipline, right? That's how, if you look at Salesforce, that's a system of record for sales. Every opportunity, every lead, every account, you have all the data captured in Salesforce. So after 6 months, you can go back and look at, hey, what deals did we lose? What was the reason for losing these deals, right? When should we re-engage with these clients? There is posterity and there is a system of record for sales. Everything is in one place. If you apply that analogy to product management, right? Product management has, by and large, including myself in the past, we have all lived in spreadsheets and slides. So the problem is that, you make great decisions in the moment, right? You decide what do you want to build in the next 6 months, but you fast forward after 6 months, and let's say you are doing planning for the next quarter. At that point, you are losing a bunch of stuff that you had captured in spreadsheets or slides. It is all fragmented, but features don't go away. Many features stay in consideration for a product backlog for over a year. And at some point, you will either build it or you will discard it forever, but they continue to be in the system. And so if there is no posterity to the decisions that were made, why was it done, all the feedback associated with that, you reinvent the wheel in the next cycle once again. Right? So it's very critical to have all that data captured so that you can use it again and again without burning a lot of cycles in copy paste or finding lost documents, etc. The second most important point is, we keep saying data is gold, data is oil, right? And when we think about automation, when we think about AI, right, everyone knows AI system is as good as the data on which it is operating. So if we want to do innovation in future on our product management workflows, on the quality of the decisions that we are making in product management, and if we don't have this data collected over a period of time, if there is no system of record, what are we going to analyze using AI? Right? So building this foundation of data is very important. So in future, you can use that for better decision making.
And I've a couple of other questions coming in centered around the topic of value that we're providing. So maybe I'll ask this question. Well, one of the questions, how do we measure the success in product team execution? And then there's another question that was sort of similar, just how can we, track the how we're bringing value? And I suppose one way could be if we're seeing that line out of our door. But when we think about the value that we're bringing or our product teams are bringing, what are your recommendations there?
Well, I think, look, it ties down to what are you trying to achieve as an organization overall, right? Every organization has a few goals around, how many customers do they want to acquire? How much revenue do they want to accrue this year, right? What is the customer satisfaction or NPS score that they want to drive towards? And at the end of the day, technology is products are enabling us to meet these business goals. So one of the best things PMs can do is essentially, take the organization goals and basically translate that into saying that if we were to meet these organizational goals, right, what is it that we need to do in terms of delivering the product that will help us achieve these goals? And when we talk about, okay, here are the things that we need to deliver in the product, have we validated that with the market? Have we validated that with customers, that if we did this, it will result in the outcomes that the organization as a whole is trying to orchestrate, right? So we are the bridge. The best things that product managers can do is basically, identify what are the organization goals or metrics, what products do we think, or what technical investments do we think are we going to make to achieve those things, and how do we put in metrics in place to validate, right, that yes, our customers agree that this is important. We are seeing feedback from the market that this is important. We have evidence from the internal team that this is important.
Well, Praful, this has been awesome getting to chat with you. I'm looking at the time. We're coming towards the end of our time here. So if there is one thing that you hope people remember, either from the conversation or about Chisel, or whatever it might be, what's that last thing that you hope sticks with everybody here at the session today?
Well, I think I would just say that once again, going back to the true conversation topic for today, right? Are you a product manager or a pointless manager? I think the most important thing that I would want to call out is that let's be mindful of what value are we bringing to the organization. Like PMs are very big advocates of ROI. We always talk about, hey, we should do this because it brings this ROI, right? For every other investment that we make. And we have to be mindful that the organization is choosing to invest in the discipline of product management. The organization is choosing to invest in a team for product managers, right? And how does the organization get the best ROI of that investment? What can we do to add value back, right? If we see ever that our activities are trending more towards coordination, acting as a glue or a messenger between different teams, we should be alerted, right? We need to repivot our focus, and we need to educate everyone. Like, even if the team wants us to go in that direction, we need to educate them that no, that is not the best use of the product management time, right? Yeah. We need to be here. We need to be true to the customers, true to the market, and bring that value to the organization where we can build successful products and successfully meet organization goals. So let's be mindful of that.
I love that. No, that's a great way to end. And you know what? I have a feeling, everybody, we need to be proactive product managers, right? And if people are here wanting to learn, that means we're being proactive. So I have a feeling everybody watching here, you will do well if you take action and you start taking everything that we learned here from Praful and putting it to use. So Praful, a big thank you to you and the rest of the team at Chisel just for making this happen. This was an awesome conversation. Just thank you so much for being a part of this with us.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Absolutely. And thank you everybody for being here again. I know we're product people, we're busy, we're pulling a lot of different directions, but taking the time to learn, to be here with us, it means a lot to us. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow with a recording of the session and some resources that I think will be really helpful. And I will see everybody at our next session. Thanks, everybody.